Hey, what is up, everyone? This is Ete with another episode of Eco Lawn Science, and our first one of me behind the desk, so bear with us. There's just some, I'll have some images popping in, and they come in on different corners and things, and it's like a weatherman. I'm pointing one way, it's going the other way, so just bear with me. Hopefully we'll have some fun today. So today I want to talk a little bit about drought stress, and the reason is it's June 25th, I think, 26th, and I'm driving through town here in Heber, and I'm seeing it in Salt Lake, Utah County areas. And what drought stress is, and we're seeing a lot of it, is kind of what it sounds like. Your lawn gets stressed out. Here we are. We think about through the season. So the lawns wake up, depending on where you are, March through April. And they come out and they're green and they're actively growing and you're feeding them and things are looking amazing through April through May. And now this year was a little different. We had the driest April in 140 years in Utah. Then you get through May, and then the end of May, you start getting mid-May, you get some showers. So you got a lot of moisture in the air, in the ground, in the water. So things are really looking good. Your flowers are popping, your trees are opening up. And then all of a sudden we get to, and it goes all the way through mid-June, usually like that here in Utah. But by end June, we start seeing some spots. And people start freaking out. I've got insect damage. I've got fungal issues. Oh, you guys killed my lawn if you have a lawn company. All these things start happening. And so the most important thing we got to do is we have to identify it, because the last thing you want to do is go out and buy a fungicide for a little brown spot when you don't even know exactly what it is. That's just putting something that has a risk of negative impact on beneficial, fungal and insects and causing issues. So we want to ID it. We want to figure out what it is. So we're going to talk about drought stress, because I always start, when I see these brown spots this time of year, I always have everybody start with sprinklers. Start with your irrigation. Make sure, because that's an easy one. That's a safe one to rule out before you have to apply anything, and it's not as expensive as fungicides, insecticides, etc. So anyway, that's what we're talking about, drought stress. I'm seeing it pop up. It probably started about a week ago. You can see in this picture, it can have different patterns. Sometimes you have a nice green, healthy lawn like this one, but notice it's not a complete circle. It's not a square. It's not obvious. So in this quick diagnostic, I could almost think it's a little bit of a fungal issue. And I'm sorry if you're watching the podcast, you're not seeing the videos. But what we have is a nice green lawn with a big yellow spot, but on the edges it has weird little shapes. And so that's a great example of what drought stress. You might be seeing that. And I've got a few other images I'll show you as well. Same thing here. You can see, now this one you've got a light green, you've got darker green, so different shadings in the lawn. But the one area, what you see where the brown spots are, you can tell it's just stressed out. It doesn't look right. And that would cause some concern. So yeah, I'll throw up some more images for you. But what I want to talk about with the drought stress is first figuring out what's happening, what's going on. And so normally it's just the excessive heat, because we've been in the 90s the last week. It popped up into the 90s, and it's been dry. That rain is short-lived in Utah. So here we are. So the lawns quickly can go from, looking green and amazing to stressed out and to looking sad and having them spots. And usually drought stress, you're not going to see an entire lawn go drought stress. It's just going to be little sections of the lawn. So I'm going to give you a quick overview and some things to look for that are going to contribute to drought stress and help you ID it, help you identify it. So the first thing, you're going to look at your thatch. Thatch is that organic dead debris in the soil. Then you could have over-excessive nitrogen, which is too much fertilizing, and the wrong types of fertilizer, so synthetic, high-nitrogen fertilizers. Your mowing could be wrong. You could be mowing too low, which is very common. And then I'm going to share some ways that you can test. You can actually test and say, is this drought stress? So let's go ahead and jump in. So the first thing I mentioned was the thatch. So thatch is when you have this debris, this organic matter. So it could be from leaves, it could be from dead grass blades, it could be from things blowing into your lawn, but it's just debris that gets in there and it gets down to the root zone, and it prevents oxygen from penetrating. It prevents water and your nutrients from really getting in. So as you can see, when you have that high thatch layer, it's going to be a blockage. And so a lot of times you could be watering well. Let's say you're hitting the area real well, but it's not penetrating, it's not being used, and so therefore it just sits there and it mucks up, which could turn into a fungal issue. So that's the first thing, is your thatch. So what you want to do when you have the thatch is you want to make sure you don't have a buildup, and then you want to power rake it. Now this is a power raker. It's just a little machine you can rent at Home Depot. But it's a lot of work. You got to run it over, and then you have to go ahead and rake it up. So one front lawn, you could get 8-10 bags out of it. Now you don't want to do this now. You don't want to do this now when the lawn's already under stress. And there's There's a power rake, and then there's also a hand rake, a hand thatcher. You want to thatch earlier, so in May, before the season goes into stress, you want to get all that junk out of there so it's ready for the season. So that's one thing that could contribute. The next thing is that high nitrogen fertilizer. A lot of people or companies, I mean, in our society in 2020, it's all about get it done fast and cheap. And the best way to do that is a high nitrogen, is a 4600, 3200 products like these. And with the 46, that just means it's a 46% of total nitrogen. And so, yes, when you put that on that lawn, in March, April, and May, and June, you're going to have the greenest lawn on the block, but a lot of people aren't thinking about the consequences, and now you're seeing them. Is you've overfed, overstimulated the top part of the growth, the grass blade, and you haven't done enough for the balance, for the roots, for the plant itself. And so you've had a lot of growth, but think about it, everything's going up. It's pushing, every time you overfeed with a high nitrogen, you're pushing that grass to grow high. You're not doing anything for the roots. And these drought stress problems are really more of a root problem. You haven't been balanced. You haven't been feeding it properly. And then, of course, I've mentioned mowing heights. When you mow too low, you could scalp the lawn. General rule of thumb is you want to be at, in this time of year, you raise your blades up, 3 inches, 2.5 to 3.5 inches. You're going to allow more, that grass is going to essentially shade the soil a little bit. So it's going to provide protection for the grass. And so you want to make sure you raise your blades when you mow throughout the summer. Super important. That's one thing everybody overlooks. Now, how do I know if I have it? So let's say you didn't see thatch or some of the high nitrogen and you're mowing right. I'm going to give you some ways that you could actually test it. The first test is a screwdriver test. Very simple. So let's say you had that green lawn, but you had that brown patch that we saw earlier. You would take your screwdriver, a simple flathead screwdriver. So yeah, in this image, you've got that little brownish spot, and you apply the screwdriver, just push it through. And you shouldn't have to be, putting your full body weight. It's just a screwdriver. And what happens if you feel a restriction, then you're going to pull that screwdriver out and you're going to go into a green part of the lawn and you're going to go ahead and just apply that same screwdriver in there with the same pressure. If you notice a difference, if it goes through the green really smooth, and if it was really hard, took a lot of force through the brown, that means your soil's drying out. That most likely it's a drought stress area. Because if it was a fungal area, it would still be nice and consistent on the soil matter. Some other quick tests. There's a footprint test. So you could run across, run across that whole area, the area that you're worried about and the healthy areas. And if the grass stays matted down, if you see footprints, you're looking at drought stress. There's a crunch test. You just walk on it. Take off your shoes. Well, you can feel it with your shoes on. You walk across the lawn. And if you feel a crunch, if you feel, versus the nice areas and it's soft, you're looking at drought stress. There's a shade test. If your drought stress spot is in the sun and right next to it there's shade and that looks amazing, there's something telling you there. Again, you can, by using these, you're ruling out fungal. You're ruling out things. So some other quick tips for it. If you've identified it and you're saying, I do have drought stress, or you want to continue this process before, you want to make sure you can rule it out before you get to insect fungal damage. Here's some tips. Don't water every day. Okay, do not water every day. Common mistake. People water the wrong times. You want to be running your system very early in the morning, 2, 3 a.m. Have it wrap up around, 6, 7 a.m. or somewhere before that sun comes up, at, before 9 or 10 o'clock. You want to move it to very less frequent but deeper watering. So instead of 10 minutes 5 days a week, or we'll say 6 days, 10 minutes 6 days a week, it's better to go 20 minutes 3 days a week. Does that make sense? So you want to make sure that you're putting more down when you water, but not as often. Because when you do it often, you're encouraging those roots to be shallow. They're just coming up for the food. You want it to go down and be deep. There are soil conditioners you can apply, wetting agents that companies or you can get for yourself. Products like Hydrotane, and I've done an episode on Hydrotane. You can go ahead and put that down. You have to put it down before drought season, before the stress comes. Revive, there's products like that. They're made from organic-based soil conditioners, humic acid, fulvic acids. And so you really, if you see these spots, you want to the last thing you want to do is, I got to fertilize it more because it's not green enough. That's actually going to add more injury to it. You want to make sure you're watering properly, not too much, not too little, but make sure when you're watering, it's actually having an impact. It's getting to where it needs to get to. So if it needs to correct the soil, you're going to look at products like Essential Plus, humates, soil conditioners. You really want to focus on the soil in those areas and help bring it back, help revive it. And so that's my tip for today. I would say if you see these spots, start here. I always start with drought stress because usually around here, 8 times out of 10, it is drought stress. As you've seen, it can manifest itself different ways. It can look all kinds of different colors, different splotching, different patterns. But if you run through some of these tests and you check through the thatch, look at how you've fertilized it, look at how you've mowed the lawn, and then some of these tests I have, you can actually find out, what it is. So anyway, I hope that helps. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.